Welcome back to my channel, Old Bob's Garage. I haven't done a video for a while. I've been a little bit sick. I get a bit of a scratchy throat. When I talk, I start coughing a bit. So finally getting back to it. It's been a few weeks. So just start back off with the motorcycle. You can see it's out of storage now. Got a few things to do, get it ready for the spring. For people who haven't seen the channels or the previous videos, I did a rebuild of the rear hub. Did it not really as the way it's supposed to be done. I did with the tools I had. I don't have micrometers. I just have a vernier or inside bore indicators, but I was able to come up with a way to, I think I got it reasonably well. Had the clutch apart, did some work on it as well. Checked things out, got grease on the plates, cleaned that off. I had an oil leak, changed the fluid in it. That seems to have slowed down. It's not gone, so I'll probably have to go back to it. But generally, just got it out and I'm going to go through it. So I won't take you through the details. The next thing I'm going to do is go around, just grease a few fittings, just check a few things, make sure bolts on. I've already been through the clutch just to go back into it. I actually did found a bolt that on the motor that I hadn't tightened. I knew that when I took it apart. I just got it back together to put in storage. So that's been tightened up. And I didn't show in the previous video, but I have an aluminum bar that I put in between the transmission and the motor sprockets to lock everything up, so you don't put a lot of pressure on the gears. If you use an impact wrench, you can use a torque wrench on that. So it's back together. You can see there's probably a few things I'm going to check through. Like I said, I won't really give a whole lot of details. Just greasing. You can find all the grease points, and there's a lot of grease fittings on this. I'll get that started, get it done, get some gas in it, check the oil, or put some fresh oil, I should say, and I empty that out. I may empty the transmission, put some new transmission fluid in there. I think if you watch the previous videos, you'll know that I've had a bunch of different stuff in there, but for the old Harleys, knuckleheads, panheads, they just used engine oil. Didn't use anything special, which is a 50 weight or a 60 weight oil. So I think I'll drain that out as well, so make sure everything's okay in there. So we got a consistent fluid in there, and then we'll see if we can get it started. So see the rest of this video will probably be on me just getting it ready, checking things over and kicking it over, and then after that I got a couple more videos I need to get caught up in as well. So sit back, relax, grab a beer. It's a pretty hot one for spring, and we'll go through this. Thanks. So I'm going to work from the back to the front and the rear. I always make sure the grease gun is clean in the end because I'm always dropping it in dirt. The rear hub should be fine because, like I said, I repacked it, put the new inner race, coned out the hub and got that together. But I'm going to give it a squirt anyways. So I made a bit of a mess already. Grease fitting wasn't on tight. And now my nice clean hub has got a whole pile of grease in it. Doesn't take much. I'll have to come back and clean that up because that's a big mess now. Got one right here for the brake crossover. So this arm here for the rear brake. There's a shaft that goes through, connects up to the arm on the other side for the rod that goes to the rear drum. Doesn't take much. Another Zerk fitting right here for the actual brake itself. That just needs a little bit. I'm not going to go after the neck. That would need to jack it up. Actually have to there isn't a grease fitting. You have to take it apart and pack it. I won't do that. That was done near the, about 2 years ago. I'll check for slop in the bearing, and I will probably do that later, but for now I won't. Now that one you have to be careful with as well. The last time I did this, I pumped in too much grease, and I blew out the cork seals in the star hub. So that was a bit of a learning curve for me as well. So I had to pull apart the front wheel and had to clean that all out. There's 2 grease fittings, one in this at the end where the shims are for the star hub, which I can never get. No, that's just putting a whole lot of grease everywhere where I don't want it. So this fitting is a little recessed. So I've got this needle tip on this one, and it allows me just to push up against the ball of the Zerk fitting and put a little bit in. Again, don't need much, but just get a little bit of lubrication in there. Then on this side, 2 fittings, one for the gear shift and one for the clutch assembly. I'd shift the camera around, but taking your word for it, this is all pretty obvious stuff. That's why I'm not going into details. And the other is for the, it's called the mousetrap. That's the spring assist for the clutch. And that's it. That's all the grease fittings. Okay, the one thing I forgot is the seat post. Pretty accessible. I'm going to use this for the sake of speed. Pretty important because that's the only isolation from the road. That's the only isolation from the road with a rigid rear suspension. So that's about it for there. I'm gonna go and I won't bother with that, but I'm gonna lubricate a couple little places, you know, for the cables, make sure everything's okay. I do the once a year. Rode it a fair bit last, but really that's probably more than enough. Okay, I'm gonna have another quick look at the points. And you can see actually still a bit of grease on there from the last time. And I see just a tad a bit of arcing there. So I'm gonna just run this 180. A little hard to do single-handed. I'm just gonna run this 180. Set you down through these points just to take a little bit of the oxidation off. And it's got it, didn't take much. I'm going to also wipe a cloth through that. You can see the paper actually leaves a lot of oxides, silicon oxide from the paper itself in the distributor, everything between the points, so I want to get that out. What I'm also do is I'm going to kick over. You guys see that all right? Okay, I'm going to kick over the motor till I get to the high side. So I think I showed you this in setting up the timing. There's a narrow lobe and there's a big lobe. So you can see a flat on this side and flat that side. So that's when the points open to spark, and that's when the points open to spark here. I'm actually up on it just barely, but I'll go a little bit further just to make sure it's fully up. what I'm going to do, I'm going to run a feeler gauge in there. I can see that it's open, but I'm going to put a gauge in between it anyways. So this is just a 16,000 gauge. I think I'm going from memory. I'll probably have to do this and then go check after I've done it. But that's typically what it is. Let's try something a bit thinner. Nope. Maybe I'll find out where it is. Okay, that seems like it's down a bit, so I'm going to go check that. Okay, I just learned a couple things I just want to check. And first of all, I didn't have the timing advance far enough to get the wide lobe, so I just pulled it ahead a little bit further. And it's not 16,000, it's 20,000, and it's right on 20,000 now. Just perfect. Just slides in. And I wouldn't have expected anything different. I probably did that about 200 miles ago, so it should be fine. Whoops. So I just found out what I did. I didn't have the timing advance to the widest part of the lobe, so I just kicked it over a little bit. It didn't take much, just a fraction of a rotation to get it to the high part. And it's not 16,000, it's 20. And you can see right now, it's just perfect. And that's what I would have expected because I had set that up a few hundred miles ago before. So you can see one of the previous videos and that. So I really wouldn't have expected any problem there. So that's good. I'm not going to go through the push rods because that was probably one of the last things I did at the end of the year. And I think we're all good.